welcome back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
And remember, our goal is always to guide you to personal and financial wellness.
We welcome you back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show. For 8 years now, we've shared with you what you need to know, want to know, and should know about real estate, finance, your community, and so much more.
And if you're watching us at donandgino.com, if you're watching the live stream, you'll see that we both wore the same shirt today.
That's right. Mom dressed us the same.
Totally.
So, also on donandgino.com is a plethora of YouTube videos. We're talking over 2,000 YouTube videos with some of the best professionals we can find in the Santa Clarita Valley, Los Angeles, and the nation. And today we have one of our favorites. He's been on our show at least 24 times talking about something that all of us will basically be dealing with at some point or another. If it isn't us, it's somebody we know, and that's basically elder care. And he has always given us insight on things you should know about.
And Myles, you've been on the show for many times, and that's Myles McNamara with Comfort
I'm
Keepers.
like, oh, you're going to introduce him?
Yeah. and Myles has been on the show for years. I mean, we've talked about this
his own show
for
even.
a very long time. Of course he has his own show. That's where we got him from. But at the end of the day, I mean, you were on our show and so if you're out there right now and you're not doing things right or need a little hand, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we probably had, 2 or 3 years that we knew each other before we ever used your services.
Right.
And then finally, the time came where it was appropriate for us. And it's just been a blessing for us.
Well, a lot of times that old cliche, people don't know what they don't know. So a lot of times when we're struggling with our aging parents or grandparents, or maybe even not a senior who's recovering from illness or injury, they need a helping hand in the home. So what Comfort Keepers and Home Care does, anything that doesn't take a medical license to do, which is primarily a lot of the activities of daily living assistance that our seniors need, it keeps them in their house safely, which is where they want to be. We can make sure that they're eating nutritious meals. We can make sure they're taking their medications on time. We can, help them with personal care if need be. A lot of times, which is a real undersold portion of what we do is companionship, because if a senior maybe has lost a spouse or, and what follows that is maybe depression and isolation. So sometimes our Comfort Keepers can come in and just take them out for an ice cream cone, or get them to the senior center, or just get them out and about and try to get them to re-engage in the things they did before maybe a tragedy struck or they lost someone or whatever the case may be. But seniors want to stay in their own home, and you get a lot of times adult children who want to give their parents what they want. They don't want to put them in a skilled nursing facility, or sometimes assisted living is a good choice for the family. But primarily we see our seniors want to stay in their own home.
Or culturally, I mean, for us it's a cultural decision. There's no way we would do that to grandma. We just wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
So whatever it costs, we got to do it. We got to figure it out.
And a lot of times, the adult children are really strapped. We call them the sandwich generation, as we've talked about before as well, where, they're taking their kids to soccer practice and, working and, having their own busy lives. But now they've got to jump on that other side of the sandwich and make sure that mom and dad are, well, in addition to that, and make sure they're taking their medications, make sure they're staying hydrated during the hot, dog days of summer, and, eating nutritious meals, and not have that slip and fall when they're trying to shower by themselves. And so that's a lot of things we talk about, is be proactive, not reactive. Yeah, we can be there once an incident happens and there's a broken hip or a slip and fall or what have you, but think about it before you actually have to have us, and prevent that slip and fall.
And we've talked about this on numerous times. So if you want to actually go back to our catalog of shows and go to donandgino.com, type in Myles' name, type in Comfort Keepers, and we're going to talk about some of those signs.
Right.
Because we don't want to see those signs in our parents. We don't want to see those signs that they're giving off, like, hey, maybe this is not such a good idea to let grandma and grandpa take care of the kids anymore. Like, if they showed up on the wrong day. That's happened before to a friend of mine, right? Like, dad showed up on the wrong day to take care of the kids. Right. Hey, probably a sign that he's not all there anymore. Right. There's something going on.
Well, the other piece that you've brought up, Myles, that a lot of us don't realize until you get in that situation, there's always that uncomfortability of you're now, like you said, taking care of your parents. They may not want you taking care of them. I know when I need to eat. I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do. Or I don't want the bathing situation might be very uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, sure.
And those are the things that you guys actually can help with, where it's not that uncomfortableness between father and son or daughter and and dad and all that.
Well, you called it the talk.
The talk, and you hit the nail on the head. It's a transition we call parenting our parents. And let me just preface it by that, with saying always do it with dignity, respect, compassion. Don't go in there like a bull in a china shop and think you're a know-it-all. Because think about it from the other side of the coin. In your parents' eyes, you're always going to be their kids. You're going to always be their children. So that's what we always encourage people.
That's because even if we're 40, we're still stupid.
Right. And I talked to she was a physical therapist once. She has a lot of acronyms after her name. And, she was telling her mom what she needed, but, it was her daughter, but then someone else came alongside her and said the exact same thing. And that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how many acronyms are after your name, you're still your parents' kids. So, and that's what we offer is you don't even have to, it's free of charge. We don't even, you don't have to be in service. Is my care manager can come in, sit with the family, and then we call ourselves trusted advisors. Let us talk to your parents, and give them suggestions. We don't use the word caregiver because that immediately throws a disparaging view on it. We're personal assistants. We're concierge. Think about it. Through life, we always hire people to, do house cleaning, gardening. We do things to give us a helping hand.
It's
the same thing
convenience,
with home care.
right?
Yeah.
You hire people for convenience is the way you look at it. Like you said, I could garden. I don't want to, but I can. I'm capable of it. I just don't want to, so I hire somebody to help me with that.
Right.
And we were talking a little bit about our particular situation, and you gave us some freedom back. The adult children and the grandchildren in this case, right? Because grandparents, people that need a little bit of assistance, they don't want to be a weight down on the family either. That's one of the things they don't want.
They're very proud generation. They don't want to be a burden.
They don't want to be a burden. That's it. A weight. I was calling it a weight, but it's a burden. They don't want to be a burden. So this actually alleviates everybody of the burden, and it alleviates them mentally of them feeling like they are a burden.
Right.
And, some of them are in good financial shape. Interestingly enough, because we've been doing a lot of reverse mortgages now, people can stay in their homes. There was a time where people they didn't have a choice. They had to sell their house and go into a home and use the equity from. But now with the reverse mortgages as great as they are, we're seeing a lot of people stay in their homes, which is why we have an inventory problem. But that's a different.
And I'm glad you guys are doing that because it's such a reversal. There's such a stigma because reverse mortgages were done so badly in the past.
They were. A lot of people
now
were taking
there's a lot more
advantage of.
regulations and oversight, and it really is a great option because a lot of times you have seniors who have been in the same house 50, 67, 60 so years.
Yeah.
And they bought it for a loaf of bread back then, right?
Yeah.
Seemingly, but now they're what we call asset rich and cash poor.
100%.
So they may be living in a multi-million-dollar house that's appreciated over the years, but the bank account, it doesn't really correlate. So the reverse mortgage is an awesome option for seniors to use that fund.
Or they might be running out of their savings because we're using this.
Hopefully they don't get to that point. If they encounter us earlier, they don't have to get to that point.
Well, the key thing is maybe the family members, like you said earlier, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take care of grandma or grandpa. No matter what, it's a family thing. It's our cultural thing. But what if the funds aren't there because they didn't set up long-term care? There's a lot of expense to it, and it becomes a financial burden on the family members that are all trying to handle it. Whereas if you can get a reverse mortgage, utilize the equity in the home.
Right.
The family doesn't
really
care about the equity down the road.
I'm really glad my dad's not listening.
Yeah, they'd much rather use the equity in their home to cover that cost so it doesn't hit them financially right now. They're like, I'm not worried about my inheritance right now. I need the extra couple grand a month that I'm spending or whatever it is.
And another big change that I want your listeners to know is and I predicted this. Remember years ago, whenever we started this dance, is because home care is private pay if you don't have long-term care insurance. And I said at some point, Medicare, Medi-Cal, private insurances, they're going to look at home care as a preventative issue to save money down the road because, face it, it's all about business. So it's like that gastric bypass surgery that used to didn't be covered by insurance until they did the cost analysis and said, well, wait, if we cover this now and we have them lose 100 pounds and all these other issues that come along with morbidity, we're going to save money in the long run. The patient's going to be more healthy. What's the same with home care? It's not Medicare yet, but there's a handful of Medicare Advantage plans for 2019. So check on your insurance that are starting to cover some home care, like the Kaisers and the United Health Cares and the scans. So some of the Medicare Advantage plans for which is just, if you're not sure what it is, Medicare, you have straight up Medicare. And then what you can do is you can assign your Medicare benefits to a Kaiser or a United Healthcare. That's called a Medicare Advantage plan. They have now been cleared by the CMS for covering home care. So
that's huge.
Check with your policy if you have an Advantage plan. See if that's part of your coverage, because now they're starting to pay for home care. On
a lot of you probably out there did not know that.
I didn't know that.
Okay, let's look into that without a doubt.
I'm always worried about that. We could probably do a whole show on insurance and Medicare, but I'm always concerned about that. It's very hard, even for me, to pick where my dad's Medicare should go.
Right.
You know, I look at it and I'm like, it's confusing. I get phone calls almost every day asking for my dad so that they can sell him a different Medicare policy. They're like, "Oh, hi, is this Carlos? Can you verify that you received your Medicare card?" And I'm like, "No, it's not Carlos." "Well, can I speak to Carlos?" "No, he doesn't speak English." "Oh, I speak Spanish."
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and something for a future show, if you guys wanted to sort of do a tag team elder care type show, is there's experts out there, and I usually refer Paul Davis, because he helped me with my mom's Medicare, because she lives up in the woods where the Medicare Advantage plan was horrible. But Paul will sit down and he will evaluate what your needs are, because again, a lot of what you call the formularies that cover your prescription drugs change on an annual basis. So what worked last year may not work this year. So what Paul does is he sits down and he says, okay, what's better for you? Is it straight up Medicare? Is it Medicare with gap insurance? Is it an Advantage plan because they cover your formularies? And so you really need to sit down with an expert, not a salesman who's trying to sell their product.
Right, big difference.
And look at the entire spectrum of what your options are. And
so he's a consultant.
He's a consultant.
Excellent.
So Paul Davis Insurance, sorry Paul, I don't have his contact information, but you could Google him. He may be a great guest for your show at some point.
No, it sounds
good. But
good.
he's really helped seniors
available.
Choose what plan is best for them.
That's awesome.
All right, so we got a couple more segments coming up, so you aren't going to want to go away. We have, again, Myles McNamara with Comfort Keepers in Home Care, longtime guest, expert with elder care, and sharing with you all the time on options for your parents or your grandparents or somebody you know.
Or as we get older, for ourselves.
Yeah. No jokes, Gino.
You saw it. It was there.
I know.
It was coming.
How can they get a hold of you before we go to the next segment?
Well, I'm here locally. I have an office in Encino as well as in Santa Clarita, but here locally is 661-287-4200, or just go to comfortkeepers.com.
All right, excellent. Stay tuned for the next two segments. It is great information that all of us need to know when we come right back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show.